You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden.
So Simon, this is our last week of City on a Hill on building a missional culture. So why did we end with digital mission?
That's a great question, because there were lots of things that we could have done. I think we need to recognise that we live in a digital world. Even my mother, who's about to celebrate her 80th birthday, lives in a digital world. She's got her iPad, she's got her iPhone. It's how she connects with people, how she sends her emails. It's how she gets a lot of her information. And we are called to equip the saints. Ephesians 4 describes pastors and teachers who are equipping the saints for works of service. And if we're going to equip one another to be missional, we have to do that in a way that equips them to be missional in a digital world. So it felt like one of the things we had to do. We had to include it in this series. I mean, Darren, I'm aware. I've been every day for 6 years now. And before I arrived, I think we started every day online. Why did we do that? How long has it been?
Why did we do it? It's a very good question. But when you start thinking, church of the people, as we know, but when they gather in a building, sometimes people can't make it to that building. And there's lots of reasons. And you start thinking through, you think, okay, it could be just time issues, it could be work shifts, it could be other commitments they've got. You think a little bit wider, it could be because they're in hospital or even in prison, or other religions are against it, or even death threats. So there's lots of reasons why people can't get to church inside a building. So we thought, okay, how do we take church to them? How do we make that the best way? And where are the most people? So immediately look at online. At the moment, today, there's 5.52 billion people online. That's nearly 70% of the world. What a massive community to reach. And you could do it at a click of a button. So there's a huge harvest out there just to reach and just gospel message right out. So we're really excited about that. We've had some really key Bible verses, which really kind of a foundation for us. Obviously going into the nations, teaching all the world. One we really loved is this one. On arrival, they got to the church together and reported on their trip, telling in detail how God had said to them to throw the door of faith wide open so the people of all nations could come streaming in. Sorry, bit of a techo joke there, but I just love the way that was all about streaming. And so when did we do every day online? We started quite a while ago. We started on 20th of September 2015. That was a long time ago. It was, people didn't really know about online. It was happening in the States, wasn't really happening in the UK. So when we launched, it was really, God really encouraged us with some great prophecies. One of them was about the Wright brothers. Someone said it's going to be like the Wright brothers, as in they're learning to fly. A few bumps, which there were, quite a few bumps. People weren't sure, what are you trying to do? Why are you trying to achieve that? But then later on, everyone travels by airplane, and it's just the given, and that's how we saw online. We started off, we seemed to be the only ones doing it, but then obviously with COVID, it really made everyone take flight, literally. So that was the reason why and when, and then a year later we managed to do multiple languages. So we did German, Italian, Spanish, and Russian. Some for a season, but Russian is still going really strong. And that's really helped. So if you think of the Russian-speaking language, that's 258 million people. And that covers so many, and it covers different borders. So where we've got two warring countries, they both speak Russian, but yet we're bridging that gap through the ministry.
Oh, that's amazing. 9 years.
9 years.
Wow. This is a really tricky question. It's the sort of question I had. But over those 9 years, what maybe have been one or two highlights for you in the history of online?
And you're right, Simon, there's so many. And we're even every week we're hearing testimonies and stories. That's one thing that's really exciting, because it's just like broadcasting. The word comes from the agricultural and about this sower who throws out the seed. And that's really what we're doing in digital. We really don't know how far this seed is going. We broadcast and it could go anywhere in the world, which is phenomenal. So some of the highlights are just receiving testimonies, like people saying, Northern Australia saying, hey, we love your online service. We're going to use it as our home group each week. Is that okay? We've had people start their own kind of churches and so, we're doing just like you've done here. Other ways, just really hearing about healings, about reconciliation to people, and also families that are split and divided by thousands and thousands of miles, being able to join each other online for the service. So there's been lots of personal. I mean, I've just really, really enjoyed, for me, loving being able to share the gospel through technical world. I'm a very technical guy, more than a people guy. But then suddenly having access to all these people and be able to share the gospel in a way that I know how to broadcast a message. And I think, that's really, really exciting. And so thinking more specifically, really, I just love the way when we first started, the way God intervened and promoted Everyday Church Online. We were just doing our normal stuff. We were getting ready for Christmas in 2015. Suddenly we got a call from the BBC. Can you come in? Can we interview you? And find out a little bit more about Everyday Church Online. So we did that, expecting not much to come out of it. But they did it. They did a full program on it, and then they produced it, and we went out Christmas Eve. That was amazing. Huge profile, something we couldn't have orchestrated, something God that brought into our laps. But not only that, they then contacted us again in February and said we're going to repeat the program, this time on BBC World Service, which is over 300 million people. So it's been, like you said, there's so many different ways that I've been so blessed by being part of Everyday Church Online.
They are great. They're great highlights. And I know from our conversations that's just a tiny snapshot. And I get your monthly update just with emails from people around the world saying how it's impacted them. In terms of kind of the mission field, in what ways has Everyday Online been missional over the last 9 years?
Yeah, it's many different ways. We run our online service, we create that. We worked out quite early on in the day that if we ran 168 services, that's one every hour, we can cover all the time zones we're trying to cover. And we thought, well, perhaps we have to man them all, we have to be there and respond. But we ran a test and we worked out that it was the actual message of the service. We still have people making commitment to give their lives to Jesus at times where we wouldn't have been awake even. So that's been amazing. And the opportunity within the online services, they had the opportunity to request prayer, which goes to a dedicated prayer team. And just really looking at people coming through, hearing the message, having a chance to worship, being led into a time of commitment if they wanted to. And I think especially for Everyday Church Online, it's missional because it's right at the cutting edge. I mean, about 80 to 90% are all new people finding out about church for the first time, just being reintroduced, possibly from another religion as well, but they can't go into a building, so they're finding online. But a lot of other people who wouldn't even think about going to church. So I've had a lot of conversations saying, hey, what do you do? And I say, I'm an online pastor and our church is online. And they said, well, that makes sense. I shop online, I bank online, I do everything online. So why not church? I'll check it out. And it's for them, it's not threatening. So it makes it a very easy invitation to invite people to church. Other ways is we, with the sermon notes as well, which come out every week, we edit them and we go and send them out to about 80 bishops and pastors and church leaders. We've had amazing testimonies of revivals. One person, one of the pastors, he took the sermon notes and he spread the gospel, made some tracts and pamphlets and gave them out to this school. And 500 children in this hall praising God, praying. They had 2 Bibles, so they're writing all the scriptures on the walls so they can all share. Other ways we do that, we've had quite a few people just starting their own, inspired by the resources we created, starting their own groups. We have Joseph in Tanzania. He started a small Bible study group. He's now got a full-on church. We were able to help him and financially give him a gift. So he bought a laptop and a printer, and now he transfers all the sermon notes into Swahili and gives them out. And he's now looking to start other churches, and he goes speaking. I got an email from him this week to say they just cycled 35 kilometers out to another area of the country so he could preach and give out pamphlets, and there's huge response there. We've got another guy called BJ in Nepal, and it's the same thing. He started up like a church and life group, all from the resources that we'd be able to equip. And I think that's so missional, and there's such a massive, massive harvest to reach, and it's so easy to reach them.
Oh, that's brilliant, Darren. The digital world, it changes quickly, doesn't it? I mean, the speed of change within online. What's next? I know we're reviewing, and I know you're all the time trying to think, how do we do this more efficiently? How do we do it more effectively for the kingdom of God? What's next for online?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, everyone's in digital now, so why keep it to ourselves? Why just keep it as a venue? Why not say, hey, everyone, let's join the party. There's a massive harvest out there. Let's get the whole church involved. So this is where we're looking to move from Everyday Church Online as a venue, reaching online and digital, to encouraging the whole church to be part of the digital mission. And so we're looking to keep the services because they're working so well, and it's a huge backbone to the way we proclaim the gospel. And also the other resources we send out, the equipping, where people make a commitment online at the services, we're able to send them resources through videos and just help them start in the Christian faith. So all that we're keeping. But what we're now doing is really focusing on like kind of social media, especially with Christmas coming up with the Advent calendar. That's gonna be amazing. But really ramping that up, helping the church as a whole. Okay, is everyone's responsibility to work digitally to proclaim the gospel. It's invite people to church. So many times you can invite someone, say, "Hey, come to church." Say, "No, I can't do Sundays." We go, "Well, here. Go to everyday.online and therefore you can find this church. You can see what it's like, getting introduced to that." And so it's really just taking the online aspect of the digital mission for the whole church and therefore serving venues as well. So when they've got events on or stuff like that, we can start promoting it digitally to the local community, but also making more a wider area known and just supporting them through their communications and just helping, just really passing on the message, giving them the opportunity to share posts we do and just get people involved and just spreading the message.
Brilliant. So moving really from kind of a slightly more narrow kind of version of this, with the Everyday Online venue, much more to now, we're all part of digital mission, which is why it fits so well with what we're doing. That's so helpful. Thank you.
I mean, I brushed on social media and how I'm obviously very positive about getting the message out and stuff.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of negativity. There's a lot of fake news. There's a lot of things, a lot of traps, I would say. And there's quite a lot, the dark side of the web, so to speak. How do you think Christians should really respond to that?
Well, I think the first question is, should Christians be involved in it? And for me, I would say an absolute yes. As we said right at the start, we live in a digital world. The world is digital. The world is online. It's not even the next generation that is involved in social media. We're all involved in social media. And at times in church history, the church has been fearful about the new. And at times, the church has therefore retreated and got a bit ghettoed and has not engaged. And I think that's always a mistake. I think there are dangers, and we can talk about those. But first and foremost, the model we're given in Christ is incarnational. God steps into the world. God steps into a broken world, and we are encouraged to be, in the world. Yes, not of the world, but we are called to be, this series, a city on a hill, salt and light. You do not light a lamp and hide it under a bushel. And therefore, although there are dangers, I believe passionately that Christians and churches must engage in the online world. We must be a presence there. We must be salt and light. Because if we're not there, lots of other people will fill that gap. That's the reality. Our enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour, and he has a digital presence. And so we need to be there whilst being aware of the dangers.
So you mentioned the dangers. What are the dangers?
Yeah, I think there are lots. If I could summarise in three things. I think the first danger for Christians is that we are ignorant of the world we're entering. So computers, online, digital is accelerating faster than any development the world has ever known. I'm not that old. But I can remember when there were only, for instance, 3 channels on our television, and one of them was in black and white. And I wasn't allowed to watch ITV because of the adverts, so I thought there were only 2. And if that's in my lifetime, we've gone from there. We've gone from, I think it was in 1978, 48,000 computers were launched on the market. Okay. Last year, they estimated there were over 7 billion smartphones on the market. It's the speed of development means it's very easy for individual Christians and the church to fall behind and to be ignorant of what is going on. And we need to have our eyes open to what is going on. I think the second thing is the quantity of information that is out there, the quantity of material and content, and the quantity that we absorb. We've all seen the stats about the average person in the UK spends 3 hours on their smartphone every day, and that's the average. You know, so, and we know that our teenagers are spending 4, 5, 6 hours just on that little mini screen, and the quantity of information that is coming into them. And we know from the studies that have been done on things like neuroplasticity, on how our mind works, that is not neutral. That information is shaping not just what we think, but how we think. It is reshaping our brains. Seeing children of 4, 5, 6, 7 with smartphones terrifies me, because those brains are so malleable, and we now know that input is shaping people. The quantity of information. So I think we need to be careful we're not ignorant. We need to be aware of the quantity of the information that's coming in, but most importantly, the quality. You know, Jesus said, if your eyes are bad, your whole body is bad. And he's talking about what we view, what we absorb, what we allow to shape us. And there are, as we've heard from you, Darren, there's amazing information, there's amazing things going on. Somebody in a smartphone in a tiny village in Asia or Africa can now take a photo of their eye, and that can get sent to a doctor in another part of the world who can diagnose cataracts. What an amazing use of the power and the invention. But we also know the rubbish that is coming in. The sexual images that are coming into us, the way things have been phrasing, the fake news that you mentioned, all of that stuff. And if we are ignorant about what is going on, and we don't recognise the quantity and the quality of the information we're receiving, I think that's hugely, hugely dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you obviously mentioned Jesus, and just how do you think Jesus and the early church would have really engaged with the digital world? If they obviously up to speed, they knew how to use it.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, isn't it? Because obviously there isn't a verse in the Bible telling us how we should use our smartphones, or when a child should get a smartphone, or when we should turn off our computers. But there's a lot in the Bible about speech. And there's a lot in the Bible. I mean, James says we should be slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to become angry. Now, when I look at social media, especially when I look at posts on, X, formerly Twitter, mm-hmm. When I look at WhatsApp and all these things, sometimes I think when I see what someone has posted, I'm not sure they were slow to write that. I think they were probably quite angry in the moment when they wrote that. I'm not sure they've listened or read properly what has been written before. And that is, of course, one of the dangers about digital communication, is it's instant. Yes. You can read a post on Twitter and without thinking, from a very reactive, emotional place, type your 240 characters and hit send, and it's out there. It's out there, and you don't know who's going to hear it, who's going to read it. You don't know how they're going to be feeling when they read it. In the UK, in this year, we've seen people prosecuted and put in prison for what they have posted. And I think if we're asking the question, how would Jesus have coped with it? How would the early church have coped with it? I think we need to look at what Jesus and the early church say about how we speak, about the power of our tongue, about the importance of listening, about the importance of forgiveness, about the importance of being slow to get angry or frustrated, about not letting the sun go down on our anger, about not letting our anger leading us into sin. It's all that teaching which I think is so helpful for us. Many of us were raised around this principle of, is it kind? Is it true? Is it necessary? Okay. Paul says that our conversation should be full of grace and seasoned with salt. Now, I think those little phrases, one biblical, one kind of carrying a biblical motif, although you won't find it as a verse in the Bible, I think so much of what we post isn't kind, isn't necessary, and isn't always true. And as well as thinking about what we absorb from the digital world, we need to be thinking about what we post on the digital world. It's easy to like something or repost something or retweet something or forward something to our little group without asking those questions. Firstly, is it true? Increasingly, I don't believe anything that I see. And so we need to be asking, is this true? Do we need to do a little bit of background checking before we even, press that little heart emoji or that little thumbs up emoji? We need to think, is this kind and helpful? Yeah. There's lots of noise out there. We struggle physically to get some space and some quiet, but the amount of noise online is terrifying. And we need to be thinking, do we need to send this? Do we need to post this? Would this be better if I just went and talked to somebody? When Paul says, let your conversation be seasoned with salt and full of grace, he uses the word conversation. Sometimes I think we think, oh yeah, but it needs to be seasoned with salt. There needs to be some truth out there. Here's some truth. Well, yes, but Paul's talking about conversation. Paul's talking about this. Yeah. I can read your body language. I can see whether you're dropping off because I've been talking for too long. I can pick those things up, but I don't get that in an electronic communication. And so we really need to be thinking, do we need to put this out there? Is it kind to put this out there? Would this be a much better held within a conversation? Is it true? All these things will really help us. I think the final thing that we're encouraged to do in Scripture about every area of our life, but especially about information we're receiving, is the gift of discernment. So we know from a series we've done on spiritual gifts, we need to discern. Not everything that someone says, not every Bible verse that someone quotes, not every comment that someone makes is necessarily true or helpful or what God is saying, even if they put the prayer hands at the end of it. And we need discernment. And discernment needs time. So I think in terms of how the New Testament would help us handle social media, I think it encourages us to slow down, to post less, to make sure that what we put out there is biblical and helpful and kind, and to really work on being non-judgmental. It's so easy to judge, isn't it? It's so easy to judge people generally. It's so much easier to judge them and make judgments about them when all you've got is a potentially edited quote or potentially edited video or potentially edited picture. It's so easy to suddenly think, they're wrong, I'm right, and now I'm going to make a judgmental comment. One of the most helpful things I've read or watched in recent years is the Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma. And of course, it's been put together, it's been packaged, so I need to be discerning, I need to think what message they're trying to communicate. But I found it so helpful in just making me think, just making me slow down about how I use social media, how my children use social media, about how we use social media as a church. And I'd encourage people, read the New Testament, what it says about forgiveness, about judgment, about speech, but also maybe go and watch that video and just let it speak to you. I mean, Darren, off the back of that, we're making some changes. We're moving slightly away from being an online venue to being digitally missional. How can I, as a member of Everyday Church, connect with what you and the team are trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, following on from what you shared so well, we've doing a lot more resources. We've already got a lot of resources, but we're actually going to expand and do those. So if I just start some practical things, so our website everyday.org.uk. I always say that rhymes. You can't forget it. Everyday.org.uk. We've created that as a brochure website.
What's a brochure website, Dan?
A brochure website is really for new people who aren't really already part of Everyday Church. So they've come to the area, or they're looking for a church, or they want to find out a bit more about Everyday Church. So that's why we've done it as a brochure website. So for the congregation member, that's probably something you would point people to. We'll have talks, we'll have blogs on there for you to look at, and it's useful to be familiar with what's on the website as well. We're just about to hit Christmas, so it's going to have all the Christmas services on the front page. So it's a great form of information to share with people. We then got our app, our Everyday Church app, and that's really a little bit more essential information for the congregation, the members here. So they can use that just to really find out more information, key connections. You do prayer requests. You can find out about the live services. You can recap on services that are gone, or talks as well. So there's a lot of information there. If you want the real detailed stuff, that's where you need to create a profile on Church Suite.
Okay.
If you haven't already, really big emphasis on, once you created a profile, you will get your regular updates from the venue leaders. You will get all the information you need. You'll see a lot more key details about events. So that's really the groundwork. And if you don't want to miss out, create a profile, and you have full control of your data. So it's not an issue at all. You can change it and tweak it and request to be deleted.
So I need to people I'm trying to invite, I'm saying website.
Yes.
For my personal use,
Yes.
I need to download the app. That gives me loads of resource. That gives me, I can connect with previous sermons, stuff like that. But then for but Church Suite is where I know where my rotas are, where I get my emails. I can email others in my venue and stuff like that. Okay. What else can we do?
So what else? So social media, as you covered, is a good one. We're going to be launching our Advent calendar on the 1st of December, which we're really excited about.
Yeah.
But there'll be lots of other things. We're going to start quoting from the sermon messages, giving people links, and just different articles and posts, which we would encourage everyone to comment, to share with their friends. Once people start sharing out organically, the exponential growth of and sort of publicising and making known what we're doing as a church, but also just really a message of hope, and the gospel really gets out there. So that's all social media. Other aspects is we got a blog site, so some really in-depth articles learning about people of the church, like trustees or new staff members or other key members, but also subjects like finance. You do your finance reporting, so information like that, they can go to the blog site and find information there.
Okay. So for social media then, I don't need to think, is this a really good verse to post, or is this because you and the team are doing that, and if I'm seeing that, I can then repost that, knowing that you've kind of done some of that thinking and that discernment, and it's the right sort of length. That's really helpful.
Yeah, and that's really easy. So we really want people to follow we've got three main social media platforms we're using, so really easy to find. So Facebook and Instagram are both Everyday Church Online, and then X, or formerly Twitter, is just everyday_online. So you can find them there, very easy to find, and you can just share, follow, and keep updated through social media. We also got our YouTube channel, which is growing very fast. I would also be hosting the Advent calendar, but it hosts all the talks, other series, other sections, events we do, will be there, and that's a really easy channel to find. It's just everyday.church. And then we will have our podcasts as well. So all the sermons we do for online are then created into podcasts and distributed to the appropriate channels like Apple and Spotify. So you can sign up and listen to it there. And we've seen an increase just globally. There's an increase in podcast listening because people are so busy they haven't got a chance to watch a screen. But to have a podcast that automatically downloads when you subscribe, and you can have your weekly sermon.
Darren, that's so helpful. And Darren, just as we close, I want to thank you for. I know you don't like receiving kind of adoration and thanks, but you have worked so hard over the last 9 years in Everyday Online, and I know you're really excited about the changes we're making. And so, on behalf of all of us, I want to thank you because you are amazing and so encouraging and so happy whenever I have lots of questions. You're so happy just to answer those questions, and when I have some mad idea, you're there to help make it work. So really thank you for all you're doing, and we're really praying that as we move from just being a venue to being online digital and being digital missionaries, as it were, all of us together, we're praying that It's a blessing to the world, to the glory of God, but also you're blessed in it and in your new role within it. So thank you.
Thank you, Simon.